Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Now, Gillian Flynn is the author of books like Gone Girl, The Grown-Up, and Sharp Objects. Now, this book was published in 2009, and this is Flynn's second novel, her first novel being Sharp Objects. Now, I have to say that I am actually a pretty big fan of Gillian Flynn. Now, keep in mind, I still have not yet read her first novel, Sharp Objects, but I have read Gone Girl, and I've read The Grown-Up, and I've read this book. Now, do I call her Gillian Flynn or Gillian Flynn, because I've heard her first name pronounced both ways. Now, I know technically the name is Gillian, but I've heard it pronounced Gillian, so I'm not sure if I should be calling her Gillian Flynn or Gillian Flynn. Now, the plot of Dark Places is, it's about this young woman named Libby Day, who when she was a child, her whole family was murdered. Now, she told the police that it was her older brother Ben who committed the murders, but in this book, you find out that she was kind of coached in a way into saying that. She did not actually see who actually committed these murders. But in the beginning of the story, it turns out that she's pretty much been living off money that has been sent to her by people who felt sympathy for her, and she's been living off this money, but now that money is running out, and basically she ends up getting contacted by this group of people who are obsessed with this murder case, and some of them actually believe that Ben is innocent, and at first Libby does not want to hear it. Like, she does not want to hear the idea that maybe she is wrong and maybe Ben is actually innocent, but she needs the money, and basically they're offering to pay her a lot of money if she ends up helping them investigate into these murders and figure out who actually committed the murders. And throughout the course of the story, Libby begins to unravel the mystery and figure out what actually happened that day all those years ago. Now, the book is told in a very non-linear style. Like, there are parts of this book that are narrated by Libby Day that are set in present time, but then it flashes back to the year 1985, which is when these murders took place, and you get chapters that are told from the point of view of Ben Day, her brother, and are also told from the point of view of her mother, and there you find out what actually happened. I also thought the writing style in this was interesting because the parts of the book that take place in present day are told in first-person perspective from the point of view of Libby, but when it flashes back to the 1980s, it's told in third-person perspective. Now, I really enjoyed Dark Places. I will say, I think I enjoyed Gone Girl a little bit more, but I still really liked this book. I thought it was a really good character study and a really good mystery novel, as well as a really good psychological horror story. And one thing I really liked about this book is, in the beginning of the story, the character of Libby Day is kind of an unlikable character. Like, you realize that she's very self-loathing, but also very selfish, and you kind of get the idea that she was kind of spoiled by all the sympathy that people gave her over the years, you know, after her family was murdered, and in a way I kind of liked that, but, like, you definitely feel sympathy for her, because you would feel sympathy for anybody whose entire family was murdered, but you realize that over the years she's kind of become spoiled by having all this money sent to her and, you know, and all the sympathy that she's been getting. So I really liked how Flynn made the character of Libby Day kind of an unlikable character in the beginning, and a character who you're not really sure if you're going to end up rooting for this character or not. I also really liked the character of Lyle, who is a member of this group of people who are obsessed with this murder case, and he's the first person from this group that actually tries to get in contact with Libby, and Libby describes him as being, like, a very creepy guy, but, like, as the book goes on, you realize he's really not a bad guy at all, and I actually really kind of liked that character. Now, I actually think Flynn's writing is very similar to Bret Easton Ellis, because both her and Bret Easton Ellis write books about characters who you're really not sure if you should be sympathizing with or not, but I would say that the characters in this book are a lot more sympathetic than any of the characters from Bret Easton Ellis's novels, but I feel like both Flynn and Bret Easton Ellis have very nihilistic kind of writing styles. And also, both Gillian Flynn and Bret Easton Ellis have a lot of social commentary in their stories as well. Like, in this book, there's a lot of social commentary on class systems. Like, in the novel, you find out that the Day family, in the events leading up to their murder, were not doing very well financially, and it turns out that a lot of people in the town kind of looked down upon them because of the fact that they were not doing well financially. In this book, there's also a lot of commentary on the whole satanic panic that was going on in the 1980s, because when the character of Ben Day is accused of murdering his family, he's also accused of being a Satan worshipper, and basically back in the 1980s, there was this whole, like, fear of, like, Satan worshippers, and a lot of people thought that if you listened to heavy metal music, apparently you were into satanic cults as well. Like, in the 1980s, you had the whole McMartin trial, which is actually mentioned in the book. Now, the McMartins were a family that owned a preschool, I think in Los Angeles, but I could be wrong on that, and they were accused of molesting some of the children there, and they were also accused of molesting them in these satanic rituals, and it turns out that the woman who started all these allegations was mentally ill, but the media kind of spun this out of control, and a lot of people back then thought the McMartins were actually guilty of the crimes that they were accused of, but the McMartin trial is just an example of how crazy people went over the whole satanic panic. But this book is very much a commentary on the mass hysteria that people were having over Satanism back in the 1980s. The book is also a commentary on how lies can really ruin a person's life. But yeah, I highly recommend Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. This is a really good book, and if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend giving this book a read. Now, this book was made into a movie in 2015. Now, I still have not yet seen the movie, but I know the movie has Charlize Theron in it, and I actually do really want to give the movie a watch. I've heard a lot of mixed things about it. Like, a few friends of mine told me it was pretty good, but I've also heard that the film was pretty much torn apart by critics, but I definitely want to check the movie out at some point. So yeah, that was my review on Dark Places by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian Flynn, however you want to say her first name. Once again, I've heard it pronounced both ways. But yeah, that's my review on Dark Places, and bye.